Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Quantum Connection podcast. My name is Heather Crimson, along with my amazing co-host, Vanessa Baldwin. And today we are doing a solo episode, just the two of us, on the benefits of raw dairy, because there are many, and it seems to be a very confusing topic still nowadays. And apparently, we just need to do a lot more education and even advocacy because I did recently create a new Weston A. Price chapter, Vanessa, of Southern Utah, and I'm working on assembling a list of local producers and ranchers and so forth. And certainly there's some amazing raw milk in this area that I want to be able to promote there, and that's Weston A. Price Foundation. We're going to mention some resources at the end. So first, we're going to talk about and hopefully this won't be censored in any way, but why is this so controversial? Why is raw milk so controversial? And a little bit of the history, and then a lot about the benefits of raw dairy. So where do you want to start, Vanessa?
Oh man, I'm so excited. Yes, this is such an important topic because raw dairy is absolutely a superfood, something that's been really helpful along my own healing journey. I remember I didn't really like milk for like most of my life. And then all of a sudden, like I got into like hearing about how raw dairy was good. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try some. And I just bought like some raw goat milk and I literally was craving it so much. Like my body was probably just deficient in some of the wonderful healing properties of it. And I was like drinking it every day and just enjoying it so much for like so long. Like it was like such an just important part of my
What's the
diet.
flavor
So
like? Because a lot of people think it's too herby or grassy, or it has kind of a funky, taste to it. I don't mind it. It's very different from cow, though.
you know what's so funny is that you say that is my children, when we first started buying grass-fed meat, they would say it tastes like grass. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like that's so silly. But and some people will say like grass-fed has a different flavor profile. I guess you get accustomed to it, but I think it tastes amazing. So I really like the flavor. And I like goat milk particularly more. I don't know why, for me, but I mean, I like all of it. So I think it's really great.
I think
I
it's nice to go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say just to remind people that they can also tune on YouTube, hopefully, if we can get this one on there. Just-
Yes. So your YouTube channel, Bright Light Wellness, mine is Enlightened Mood. So
yes.
check out the video there if you want to. In addition to the podcast, we have Apple, Spotify, and all the other places. So find us somewhere, you guys. And
Yes.
speaking of flavor, I mean, I look at there's two main distinctions for as far as cow and other dairy. It's like cooked or not. So it's so much different when you're tasting pasteurized. And I never even touch or try not to touch homogenized. It's disgusting. But even they call it low temp pasteurized or vat pasteurized, it still tastes cooked to me. Raw tastes normal to me. And now everything else kind of has this weird, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just weird cooked flavor. But as far as different animals, there's some cool places like Nourish Cooperative, and I don't know what Dutch Meadows has, but you can find like, yeah, is it camel milk or something or donkey milk? You can find, of course, goat's milk, but sheep's milk. Now they're going to be more expensive, but I'm such a foodie. Like I'm like a total, right? Like the highest vibration foodie. And I think it's exciting. So once in a while, I'll order something like that just as a treat. It's really, really amazing stuff.
So exciting. I would too. I would totally do that. Yeah. I mean, we just use Dutch Meadows is what I predominantly buy from. That's where I get my raw dairy, and everything is labeled, for cats and dogs when it comes. And for
I am
cats
a
and
good
dogs,
dog.
yeah, I have a dog. That's who exactly who eats it, right? And it's just really just cow and goat dairy. And I love not just milk do we buy, but I buy like the cottage cheese, the goat milk cottage cheese. I don't know what it is about the flavor of that is so good. Yogurts and all kinds of cheeses and everything. So it's just amazing. And it's just such a superfood. But I think some people don't even realize that dairy that you buy from the grocery store is pasteurized. Like some people don't even know that. Like they don't even think about that. It says it on the label. They don't even ever think that there's another option. And basically what pasteurization means is that it's heated to kill any, potential harmful bacteria. And just like when you take like antibiotics, like just like antibiotics, this heating process will kill, the good bacteria, but also like reduces the nutrient content, and the proteins are definitely destroyed and just manipulated, right? So when you drink milk from the food store that is pasteurized, it's going to have less nutrition, less bacteria, less beneficial bacteria, and it's also going to be like likely fortified. That's why they fortify it with like vitamin D or like vitamin A. Do you know, Heather, I'm sure you know this, but when rickets was really a problem, right? They realized it was because people weren't not getting enough sunshine. So they're not getting enough sunshine, not enough vitamin D, but they also were not getting enough vitamin D from the milk because it was pasteurized. And they added the vitamin D back into the pasteurized milk. So that was one of the reasons why rickets became an issue, is because we took this superfood away. And less sunlight would be the other reason too. But yeah, raw dairy is just so rich in like the beneficial bacteria that our body actually needs. It's a rich source of minerals. And of course, whether like it's all about the way the farmer takes care of the animals, right? That's what it is. Like if the farmer is like, I feel like pasteurization came in because farmers got lazy and they just weren't taking care of the animals the way that they should. And if your farmers are doing the right thing and taking care of the animals, there's no need for pasteurization. There's no need for that. The raw milk is an amazing food that you can drink right from the cow, basically.
Yeah, I think that that's part of it. And then certainly the farmer's ability to have space, adequate space,
Mm-hmm.
the good quality feed, pasture, or whatever, alfalfa hay, whatever they used to use, right? And so then when things became more urban, when there was this migration for the Industrial Revolution, or whatever you want to call it, industrialization, and things became concentrated, then when they tried to replicate dairy the way they would do it, in a more ideal environment out on farms, things started to get wonky. So that's when the problems arose. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. But unfortunately, then when we're drinking pasteurized milk and homogenized milk, this is literally containing like toxic proteins and fats for your body. And the homogenization is just, if I'm saying that word right, is just it's because the cream is on the top. They're mixing the cream with the milk, basically. That's what that means. But when they do that, it actually like denatures the proteins and changes the fat content and all the things. So it actually makes it unhealthy. So they take this wonderful superfood that we have. We're going to talk about all the benefits of it in a minute, and they just basically destroy it. And you know what's really gross, Heather, is because we used to buy, before I knew all this, because listen, you know better, you grow, you learn. We used to buy like, oh, we're buying grass-fed milk from the food store, even though it was pasteurized, homogenized, all the things. I'm like, oh, it's healthier, it's organic, it's grass-fed, right? Which it is better in some ways than other things, but literally that stuff lasts in your refrigerator. Like the dates on that are so long.
Yep.
Just that alone, you have to realize when the shelf life on something like that can last for that long, that is so ultra processed. Milk should not last that long. It
Well,
should
yeah, I
not.
mean, it's basically dead. Oh, in
Yeah.
Mexico, it's very common to have aseptic milk.
Mm,
And that's what all the restaurants use in all the places, unless you're more in or in a country area where they actually have access to real animals in a natural setting. So you have pasteurized, which is heated to a certain temperature. They claim that kills the bad stuff, but if you're raising your animal in poor conditions, right, not properly, there might be some bad stuff, but you're also killing anything that's good. Then you have homogenized, which is when they squirt it, against a plate at high speeds till it basically makes the cream integrate into the milk, and then it never separates. And then you have ultra pasteurized now, which, to be honest, is a lot out there. And I think people need to really start paying attention, because companies that you think are good, like
Organic Valley.
thank you, Organic Valley, have a lot of organic. It's even A2, but then it'll say ultra pasteurized. Now that's heated to a very high temperature. So it's even more damaging than just regular pasteurized. And I avoid all that stuff like crazy.
Yeah. See,
I mean, part of me wants to go out and get like a latte once in a while, but no, they're using this nasty milk. I'm just make it myself at home, right? And so I think people are actually better off without the dairy. If you have any problems, you may not even realize how much dairy is aggravating your gut or giving
mm,
skin issues,
yeah.
whatever it is, exacerbating some problem you have because it's inflammatory. It's basically inflammatory.
Yeah, 100%. And it depends on, like, I used to have a problem with dairy until I switched to raw. So it's really, is it the dairy or is it the what kind of dairy that you're consuming? Is it this processing that really makes it more inflammatory for your body? I mean, we basically get all our dairy, raw from the farm. That's basically, and every once in a while, in a pinch, if I have to run to Whole Foods, which they haven't had recently, which is a little alarming. There was like one that was A2 non-homogenized and like a low temp pasteurized. So like every once in a while, and it was local and organic and grass fed. I'm like, okay, if that's like the next best thing, that's what I'll grab, like here and there, just to, survive if we need milk, because sometimes we just, it's not low, it's not something I can just get easily, So every once in a while I have resorted to that, but I don't drink it. So, but yeah. And it's true. The A2 protein is also another whole issue that we can chat a little bit about. That some people respond to the A1 casein protein with autoimmune diseases and whatnot. So if you can get not only, raw, if you can get A2, that's even better, because that's going to be that really, even better for your health. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So raw dairy is a superfood. Like, it's rich in B vitamins, including D, A, K, E, all of them. You're not going to have to add, vitamin D or fortify raw dairy with vitamin D or vitamin A, right? Because it's got tons of calcium, phosphorus. It has, it's just a really healthy health food. It has a lot of really great vitamins and minerals in it. Like, and it also contains like numerous strains of bacteria that fight against pathogens that actually strengthen the immune system. It has enzymes that destroy bad bacteria. In goat milk has one of the highest, and it's also antifungal. So some of these words I can't say. This has a laxoperoxidase and laxoferrin, which is an enzyme that steals iron away from pathogens, because iron feeds pathogens. There's lysosomes, which kill pathogenic bacteria by digesting their cell wall. There's fibronectin, which increases antimicrobial activity and helps to repair damaged tissue. There's lactobacillus, of course, a beneficial bacteria that crowds out dangerous germs. I mean, there's just so much beneficial bacteria in it. There's B lymphocytes that kill foreign bacteria and call other parts of the immune system. There's white blood cells that produce antibodies against bacteria. Neutrophils that kill infected cells. I mean, just amazing things. They help hormone and growth factors that prevent leaky gut. So a lot of people find that, yes, dairy can be inflammatory if eaten in the wrong context, but if you're eating a good raw dairy, it can be very helpful for helping leaky gut for some people. Um, they have other bacteria that adhere to bad bacteria and viruses, and really, honestly, all of those things that I just mentioned, those benefits, and even the vitamin and mineral content does not exist if the dairy is pasteurized, because all that bacteria is essentially gone, and now it's like a dead food. So it's, yeah.
Plus, whatever they're adding to it are the cheapest and synthetic
Yeah.
forms of vitamins, that are actually bad for you. There's nothing good in it, really. There, yeah, I mean, you really, if you have any gut issues, I would say, unless you can do raw dairy or maybe a little bit of cultured raw dairy, if
Yes.
you don't have histamine issues, that's the way to help your gut. It's not by, well, we don't want to get political here, but it's not by drinking the non-milks, I would call them,
Well, I
the
like that. The
called
non-milks.
the non-milks, the so-called alternative. I used to try to drink some of that stuff, and way back in the early 90s, I would even do rice milk. That's nasty. Or they have
Mm,
the oat milk. They have every kind of God-forsaken nut milk. They have just all this other crap
yeah.
that is got cheap oils, vegetable oils, and all kinds of thickeners and gums and sweeteners, and they're just nasty. If you can't do milk and you want an alternative, make your own. Make your own at home. Make your own nut milk if you have to. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's really good for you. Because
No, because ancestrally, would we ever have made nut milk? I mean, let's think about that. Like, we would never consume that amount of nuts. And like, think about like all the oxalates in that. That's how you're getting that kind of toxicity. And I'm a person who used to drink almond milk. I wanted something in my coffee that was more low calorie. Like, so I was drinking almond milk every day. And I was actually smart enough to buy one at least that didn't have like carrageenan or all the other like, seed oils and stuff like that. But I thought I was doing something good for my health. That added to my oxalate toxicity overload that I definitely dealt with. So you cannot be, we're not meant to eat nut flours. And like, that's not like, we never would have eaten that amount of that in our ancestral heritage. Like, it's just way too much toxicity for us. So that's my feeling on nut milks. I would never recommend them. I would say either you can try a high quality dairy, or then just don't use dairy. That was my other suggestion. Like, if you're or alternative non-milks. I like that, non-milks. And I also think, like, if you're struggling with lactose intolerance or like dairy issues, like starting with raw cheeses, actually, I found that's where I started actually when I went back to eating dairy. And that was easier for me. And it helped like build up like the necessary enzymes to break down dairy and digest dairy again. So, because when you take something out of your diet, you're going to completely lack the enzyme production, right? Because if you're like never eating it, now your body's not going to make the enzymes to digest it again, right? So now you've had it, you've eliminated it for a while, your body stops making the enzymes, right? So then if you start eating like raw cheese again, that can help rebuild that a little bit for you.
Try
That's
to
so
get cheese that's made with animal rennet, which is how they made it for thousands of years, and not vegetable rennet. I don't know why we think vegetable everything is such a better option. It's not. Um, so animal rennet is from the intestines of animals, or, and so that's what coagulates the milk to make the cheese, because 99%, I think is a number that I read in Nourish Cooperative's newsletter, of
mm,
vegetable rennet is actually made by Monsanto, and it's a GMO product that's really disgusting, and God knows what's in there. I do not recommend it. And I've eaten all kinds of cheese with the vegetable rennet. I did not know that until I read their newsletter. So of course I was kind of pissed. I'm like, what? So yeah, stay away from that. Now, that being said, you're gonna have a hard time finding the animal rennet, but you can, if you were determined to eat quality food and not poison yourself, that's what I would recommend.
yeah. What you put in your body matters, right? You want to give your body the best quality that you can afford of everything that you give it, right? So whether that's, dairy, water, foods. And also, we didn't even talk about this, but like there's also the whole issue of how the animal is being treated that's on the farm, where it comes from, like, like are they loved, are they cared for, like all that really matters to what quality milk they're going to produce. Are they getting hormones? Are they getting jabs, injections? Are they getting all of this other stuff in? Are they getting antibiotics? All of these other things, but it's in them, and then it's in the milk, and then you're drinking it. It's yeah, you're taking that in. So you want to also consider that. And that's why I like buying from local farms that I know do it right, that I know the animal is loved, cared for outside, underneath the sunlight, where it belongs. Like, they're not putting any junk in them, because I want to eat an animal that not I want to eat an animal that had a good life also. I want the milk that I drink, or the products that I take that are into my body, that the animal to be living in a healthy, good quality of life. So then they're producing better nutrient dense foods, and I'm putting that in my body.
And energetically, all of that
Yes. Yeah.
energy transfers, and you're consuming that energy. Now, most people would say that's hogwash, but quantum
Oh,
physics shows
100%.
us that that is what happens. It's imprinted into the substance, the water, or however it happens. I'm not a
Yeah,
fractal.
well, think about it. Like if our easy water holds trauma, so does theirs, right? So if our exclusion zone water is holding all that trauma and prints on our body, right? If you're buying milk from a cow that's been in a feedlot and they have no space and they're just like being treated really crappy, like they're gonna have I don't know, I will say trauma informed milk, but it's not going to be as healthy. That's for sure. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be as healthy as milk that is an animal that's loved and cared for the right way.
Well, the more of us that are demanding higher quality products and are willing to seek them out and then invest our money there, then more people will start doing it. That's the problem, is that big ag and the government has, created this problem where the money is used to make these monopolies and this, monocropping and so forth, and these humongous operations that are just obscene. So we really want to decentralize our food system. Absolutely, absolutely necessary.
All
And
systems.
all the, yeah, the healthcare, all the things. So this is how you do it, though, is you actually have to take the time to go find these decent quality products. Like, thank God where I'm at now, there's people doing goat milk and there's raw cow milk. Literally, I can see the store from my front yard. It's amazing.
That's cool.
When I was in Carmel Valley in California, I went and joined a while back. A family had a cow and they did a cow share. And I got to go out and I got to meet the cow and see how he milked it, and he cleaned with iodine.
Hmm.
That's how they used to do these kinds of things, right? No big
Hmm.
deal. You just clean it with iodine, the teats before you milk, and had a beautiful, space and outdoor, and it was pastured. And Yes, that sounds a little idyllic. I get it, but they're out there and more people will do it if we start to spend our money in those places. And I know it takes some time and effort, but when you can, go do that versus just quick stop at the store.
100%. If we, the only way that we're going to change these systems is if we stop, you know, buying into the regular system. Like you don't go to the food store anymore and you buy from these small regenerative farms. That's how those will grow and those will die out. That's the only way, really. It has to come from us because it's obviously never going to come from somewhere else, right? So you have to, the consumers are the ones that have to make the change. So we need to say, okay, I'm not putting this in my body. I'm not buying this. I'm not consuming this because it's not healthy the way it is, and then yeah, we
That's
have
how
to
it
make
always used to be, Vanessa. Oh, you
yeah.
had your own cow, or your neighbor had a cow, or there was a local farm, right? That's how it was for many, 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 many years. And so now we've got this, I would say, centralized system that's very toxic and dehumanizing for the animals and for us. There's the disconnect between us and our environment, us and the farmer, right? Because all the milk's collected from many farms and then pooled together, which whatever, but still, it would be nice to have to know the person your milk came from. Instead, if you get it from here, it's like 10 different farms in 1 gallon, whatever. So you want to be able to have that connection that
Mm-hmm.
enriches us, that really nourishes us, and meet the rancher, right? So that's how it used to be way back. And then, as we mentioned in the beginning, when industrialization happened, and then you had these masses of people in cities, and now all of a sudden they have to, amp up production, and things start falling apart, and corners are cut. And then what happened is they started to, when they had the distilleries to make alcohol and whatnot, then they would use that spent grain and feed the cows. So they had the cows close to these, distilleries. And then the cows got sick and they were cooped up and they would be sitting in their own excrement. It was so disgusting, right? And they couldn't even barely stand. I've seen pictures where they actually had to like put harnesses around them to hold them up. Talk about depravity, right? Talk about such despicable life circumstances for everyone. So of course that milk was highly like not sanitary, right? And it was odd colored. It was like a bluish color and it was deficient. It was very much not a nutritive product. Then they had to actually modify it with some sketchy practices, right? They added in like the information we found on it was that they had to add in like they called it swill milk and they couldn't even make butter or cheese from it. And to make it drinkable, they had to thicken it with starches and eggs or other things like plaster of Paris and then sweeten it with molasses. Can you imagine how much work they had to do to fortify a product? Because obviously it was completely just denatured and corrupted, right?
Ugh, yeah. So bad. Yeah. It sounds really gross. It's just,
People eat that kind of food. I forget that. Like, I don't want to sound like some sort of food snob. I guess I am but it's
yeah.
like the things people eat. I'm like, what? That's
Well, a lot of the milk that we people drink have bleach in it now, so we don't even realize that. Have you heard that? You haven't heard that yet? Oh
no.
yeah, the farmers will just pour bleach right into the, if there's so okay, so they're making the milks in these big vats, right? And like from the big farms, right? And if they find, they test it, of course, and if they find something is not well in the milk, like they test it because they're trying to pasteurize and clean all the bacteria out. If they find something's wrong with it, they'll just pour some bleach in it. So you're literally drinking bleach. I mean, of course, it's according to the FDA, it's an okay amount of bleach for us to drink.
I
I don't
don't
think I want to drink any bleach.
I don't want any of it.
I'm gonna pass on bleach in my milk.
Horrendous.
Yeah,
What's gonna
that's
happen?
literally what happens right now.
I did not
Oh,
know.
God. Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
for telling me. Now I will be even more like, no, thank
Well,
you.
yeah, but if you're buying from a local farm, that's not happening. I'm talking about
No,
in
I know, but
these big corporations. This is what's happening.
well, and so that's why people think they're doing the non-milks are better. No, they're not better. It's not a reason to go do the non-milks, but it certainly helps me decide that if I'm gonna go get I rarely drink decaf or coffee, but if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna bring my own. I'll just make it here. Like I've literally just eat most of my stuff at home because it's too scary to go out and it's too scary to buy from farms that I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so what was happening, it's so true, is that this milk that they were feeding to the babies, by some unknown mothers, In New York City in 1870, the infant mortality rate soared 20%, and it stayed there for 4 years. So the babies who were getting this, unhealthy milk, they started dying off. And I guess that's probably what led this French scientist, Louis Pasteur, to develop, germ theory in 1862. He found that by heating milk just below boiling, he could kill most of the germs. So that's how pasteurization was born, pasteurizing and killed the bacteria, the yeast, the mold, and viruses. It seemed simple, it seemed doable. It was this newfangled science to the rescue. Um, but they could have instead, like you mentioned before, practice like wiping the teats before and after milking, washing hands, using like sterilizing like milk utensils, assuring freshness, and just doing it that way. Like, of course, like you said, like iodine would have been like a way better way to go. um so by 1895, commercial pasteurization machines for milk were introduced into the United States. And then by 1917, pasteurization of all milk except that from cows proven to be free of tuberculosis was either required or officially encouraged in 46 of the countries and in 52 of the largest cities. And the proportions of milk pasteurization in these cities ranged from 10% to 97%. In most, it was well over 50%. So that's when it really began, I guess, was the point of that. That's when milk really became pasteurized in those times. And ever since then,
Well,
it's
how
been.
the hell what is the tribe in Africa? They drink all raw milk and raw blood. You know what I'm talking about? They're
I don't know the name, but I've heard that before.
It'll come to me, but they're like super tall, super healthy. I don't really think they're out there with all these, antimicrobial practices, and they probably don't even have, I don't know, they probably don't have iodine. They're fine.
They're not even doing that, right?
Right.
They're just,
Because
yeah,
they're in a healthy environment. Context is everything. Yes, when you
everything.
start to do this more like higher scale or larger scale, you've got to have these practices of, disinfecting or whatever. But how did we evolve for hundreds of thousands of years without, the ways to do all this stuff? It's
Yeah, it's
because
because of the big agriculture, the big business, and it's the big manufacturer. It's I have to produce so much that the farmers don't have enough time to just really do it right. That's basically what the problem is. That's what the problem. There was a high demand. The farmers got kind of lazy. They were mixing with the beer and the milk, and it was just not a good situation. And that's what caused all this. And it's like we just like we hold on to it, just like the cholesterol theory, right? Like the Ansel Keys created. Like we this one thing happened and we continue on for years and years and years, just thinking that Cheerios are heart healthy. And I'm like, I mean, it's just not. Like, in canola oil is good for us, right? Like people think this though. Like the programming runs deep. So it's like this one research thing happens and then that's like the end all be all, right?
Well,
So
there's so
like
much fear about raw dairy. There's so much fear
now, yeah,
that it's
so
just so
much.
sad. And to be honest, I would be a lot scareder of a lot of other things like, processed food than I would be of basically most things. Raw dairy, when properly made, is a superfood, whereas
Exactly.
most of this other crap people are eating, like vegetable oils, will slowly kill you. You will die earlier. Right. So it's the
100%.
same thing with the saturated fats. It's the same thing with all this, oh my God, meat. It's like, really? So
I mean, honestly, I think you're more likely to get E. coli from lettuce than you are
yes,
from
absolutely.
raw dairy. Like, honestly, I've been drinking raw dairy for quite a few years, my whole family, and all of us are perfectly fine. Like, so it's just like we need to come out and say this. And it's like, man, we worry about like so many other things. Like raw dairy is yeah, it's not something we
All
should be
worried about aspirin and Tylenol and all these
yes.
therapies. They're
Yes.
actually really bad for you. I've been drinking raw dairy for a long time, probably 30 years. So I'm
Woohoo!
last I checked, I think I'm fine.
I think you're doing good. Yeah. So like unfortunately it's really illegal in a lot of states and it's just so sad that certain states you can't even get it, certain states you have to. I mean, for where I live you have to like I have to buy it from another state. They're allowed to bring it in if it's sold for pet consumption. So that's how I buy raw dairy and I just feed it to my dog.
Find a way, people. You have to find a way. And if you need to fight
Yeah.
those laws, go ahead and do it and buy it for pet consumption.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, but yeah, it's it shouldn't be hard for us to be able to eat and find these nourishing foods. And what's happening at places like the Nourish Co-op, which is what prompted us to do this podcast, is just so wrong. Because here we have this amazing superfood that is so healthy, but we're allowed to sell Doritos that have red dyes and all kind, like that's a like, to explain, make it make sense. How are we allowed to sell something like Doritos in the food store but not raw milk? Like it doesn't even make any sense. That is actually illegal in other countries, right? Of course we know why, right? We get it. It's they make the boatload of money off of those things, and they have a lot of addictive chemicals in them that make you want to eat them and blah 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 blah. But it's just like it just makes no sense. But my point is that what happened at the Nourish Co-op and what's happened at Miller's farm.
I don't think we mentioned what happened.
Oh, well, let's talk about it. They mentioned is that they were raided and that they were all of their, raw dairy is having to be thrown out. Like all of this beautiful food from nature that is amazing and healing and so nutrient dense was just thrown out. It's like it's so horrible to think.
Such
And
a
they're
threat. Yeah, such a threat. I'm calling bullshit on it, right? If you can't figure out some guy on a roof who's going to shoot someone, but you're going to go and make these two sisters dump $90,000 of raw butter and raw cream in a dumpster, I'm sorry. There's a major problem in this world.
major, major problem. And then we have, people starving, right? But yeah, we're throwing out $90,000 worth of beautiful raw dairy that could be so nourishing and so healing and so good for these people. Like it's just,
Pretty sure there's another agenda there. It's not protecting us. That's not what
well,
it's really
it's
about.
never about protecting us. It's
Mm-mm.
never about that. That's what people don't
They
understand.
want to
So
take away the most nourishing foods, the most amazingly.
think about you're right. Think about all the things that are under threat. Raw dairy, eggs recently, right? The stupid bird flu, right? That was under threat. Meat was under threat, right? All of the foods that are the most nourishing all of a sudden are under threat.
Mm. No,
Yeah.
because you're going to eat the bugs, Vanessa.
Okay. I can get my protein from the bugs. So yeah, so we just want to encourage you to, if you can, find sources where you can find raw dairy. Like I said, I use Dutch Meadows Farms. I love them. They're an amazing farm. I've been, getting my raw dairy from them for a while. I also used to buy from North Star Bison, which is not as local to me, but they do have good raw cheeses, not milk, but you can get raw cheeses from them. And I know you use the Nourish Co-op when you can get that and it's available.
Oh, wait. So Nourish Co-op they're not taking new members. It's a private membership association.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, that didn't protect them from the raid. But that's how it's supposed to be. They're not supposed to be, attacked. But they are not open right now. But there's many other places. Well, we're going to tell you a resource at the end. Look online, just Google it, ask your neighbors, just look around. You'll find something somewhere. And then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
best quality, let's talk about that. So raw, grass-fed, A2,
Mhm.
A2, organic animals outside in the sunlight, no jabs, no, crappy medicine and stuff like that. So what is A2, A2? They're talking A2, A2 refers to the strain of the proteins that are in the milk. And A2 is more of a heritage breeds. So the most common are Jersey and Guernsey, and there's another one I
Mhm.
can't remember. But those are like they have the most butter fat too. They're amazing, like a lot of cream, and they have just the really good flavor. Holstein is like my last choice. If we're going to talk about being a milk snob here. But right, so you want to either get a heritage breed, and then they naturally have A2, A2. The Holsteins don't. They
Mhm.
don't.
If
So
I'm correct, goat and sheep is also always A2,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And the A2
Mhm.
is much easier for us to digest. It's
Mhm.
way easier the Holstein and the A1 or whatever it's called, they're problematic. That's what gives people digestive systems a run for their money.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what you want to get. I mean, honestly, that's all we consume. That's, the best you do. And I said it like the next option, if it's not possible for you to get raw, is at least be grass-fed, organic, and non-homogenized and, local without like fortified like vitamins and make it A2, A2. Like that's my second option if I can't get, that the highest quality. But of course, we aim to always put the highest quality in the body if we can. And then like I also think like if the worst comes to worst, like I would just avoid dairy, or then like cultured dairy would be the other option I would recommend. Like if you can handle it, if you can't get raw, like if it's cultured, like cultured yogurt that's organic, A2 like local, that's also good too because they are going to have some good beneficial bacteria in it. So like that's cottage cheese, cultured is like your cottage cheese, like your yogurts, all those kinds of things. They will at least have some good beneficial bacteria in them. So that will be supportive. Like that would be the last option. But honestly, you really want to get the raw, the organic, A2, you're gonna get the best quality you can get.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, a really good source for finding milk all over the country is realmilk.com. And this is
Hmm.
a website that is run by the Weston A. Price Foundation. They're probably one of the better resources in the country for ancestral, right, food prepared in traditional ways. So I would highly recommend you check them out. There's eatlocal.org. There's another
Hmm.
one, I can't remember what it is, but if you look for farmers markets and you ask some of the people at the farmers markets, you can find connections to good dairy production. So that's what I recommend is realmilk.com.
Yeah, that's where I would go to. That's how one I think actually how I found Dutch Meadows Farms might have been actually using that because
Okay.
yeah, and actually might have been how I found them because I was looking. So it's a great site. So look for that and then just, or you can or Frankie's free range meat also does it too. I was just thinking of another one that has local and organic raw milk. Trying to think if I can think of anybody else off the top of my head that sells it, but those are the only ones I can think of right now. But if you put that in your state, you'll just scroll down to your state, you'll find a bunch of resources and you can find the best place to get it. So,
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a superfood. I think it's super healing. I think it's something that we should be including in our diets. If as long as it's tolerated for you, if you tolerate it, then you should include it. I like to include different varieties of raw milk and raw dairy into my diet. And, some people will say, oh, mammals shouldn't be drinking milk or like when they're older. I disagree. If it works for you and you feel good on it, then and it can be very nourishing and a superfood for you to consume. So yeah, I don't know. Anything else here, Heather?
Well, now I'm thinking about dairy. I might have to go buy some raw milk out. So I'm going to go to the store after
I
this.
just made some raw goat milk yogurt and I finally so I didn't know with goat milk because it's less fatty. It's not going to be as creamy. So there's a lot of like water, so a lot of whey. So
Oh,
I just bought the cheesecloth and I learned how to like hang it and let the whey come out and drip out. So I just did that and I tasted it before. I'm like, oh, this is so good. It's
sounds
so
like Greek yogurt.
yes, 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 exactly. It's really thick now. It's really good because it was too watery before. So
I don't like it when it's a lot of whey. The whey is really good for fermenting. Like a lot,
yes.
many years ago, I learned that, and Sally Fallon is the woman who started Weston A. Price Foundation. She uses whey to culture a lot of things.
Hmm.
Culture dairy, you can soak your grains in it. You can use it for lots of different purposes, and it's actually quite a handy heritage type, ancestral thing. Yeah,
So
using
now I have to learn what to do with that whey. So that's
well
my
if you want to, but there's some good things you can do with it.
yeah, I got it. I have some.
So
So I'm gonna do something with it.
yeah,
I'm excited. Yeah.
so
So yeah, check out those farms that we mentioned, support local farmers, and learn how to, access this so you can add this nourishing food back into your diet. If you need more, I have an ancestral seasonal diet like plan basics ebook with the video recordings. You can check that out. That's only like I think it's like $20. So you can learn all about how to like ancestrally and seasonally like nourish your body. And I'm working on a recipe book which will have the yogurt in it. So it's a labor of love. I can't finish it because I just keep adding more things to it, right? When you make a recipe ebook, you're like, oh, wait a minute, what about this one? What about this one? Like I just did a fajita recipe yesterday. I'm like, all right, I'm adding that to it. Like I just keep adding new things. So
exciting. I can't
yeah,
wait.
yeah, I'm excited about that. It's really fun. Like I'm really enjoying making that, but it'll probably be out next year by the time I'm done. So but coming soon, but I don't know when.
I'll stay tuned. All right, you
Good.
guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode on all of the wonders and benefits of raw dairy. We hope you can find a local source. If you do, please message us and share your discoveries. We'd love to hear
Yes.
how it's going for you and what's happening in your world. So if you have also some suggestions for podcast guests or topics, reach out to us and let us know. And when you have a chance, please go to Spotify, Apple, wherever, YouTube, and leave us up to a 5-star rating and give us some feedback. So thanks.
Yeah, feedback would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.